Hello and welcome back to thejonas.net. My name is Donald Jonas. This is my 7th tutorial on Zentyal 3.0 using the 64-bit edition. Zentyal 3.0 is based upon Ubuntu 12.4 Server Edition LTS. In this tutorial we're going to cover joining clients to the Zentyal domain we have set up. The clients I'm going to be joining are Windows 7, Windows 8, and an Ubuntu 12.4 64-bit desktop. So let's begin with the Windows 7 client. Go ahead and start it up in VirtualBox. This should probably take less than a minute. And we'll log in. And there's our network, test.lan. We'll choose work network. Now that Zentyal is using Sound Before with Kerberos. Kerberos is a type of ticketing system that is to a degree time sensitive. So you need to have your clients within reason synchronize time-wise with the domain controller. And to help with that, we can point the client to the time server on the domain controller. We did set up the NTP protocol as a package during the initial installation on the primary domain controller. So we can take advantage of that now under internet time. And replace this with our domain controller name. Click OK and update. Excellent. The clock was successfully synchronized with server 01. And you just want to make sure that it is synchronized because if the time is off by too much, you might have problems logging on or joining the client to the domain. So this will help in keeping the time synchronized with the domain controller. The rest is pretty straightforward. In the 2.2 version, I had to make registry changes in the Windows 7 client to join it to the Zentyal domain. Now with Kerberos and Sound Before, no registry changes are necessary. It's pretty straightforward. It joins the same way as if you were going to join it to a Windows domain. So choose Advanced System Settings, Computer Name, Change, Domain Name. In our case, it's test.lan. A user that has rights to join, that will be myself. And give it a second here to find the domain controller and join as a trusted client. Excellent. We'll go ahead and reboot it and log in with the domain user, and that way we can test some of these accounts we set up. Test out that accounting share to see if a user we gave access to has access to make sure it works, and we'll also test a user who should not have access to make sure it doesn't work for them. We'll go ahead and log in with our first domain user. As you can see, the actual authentication was very fast. Now it's preparing the desktop. Excellent. I'll go ahead and add the run command. And let's browse across the network to our domain controller and check out that accounting share that we had set up. And as you can see, this user has access. We can create a folder. I'll just call it Test Win 7. And we'll go into Computer. And you can see there is your H drive, your personal drive for this user. And we can put a directory in there. Call it Test. And we'll log in now with a user who does not have access. browse to that network share accounting, and you can see this user does not have permissions because we did not set the user up with permissions. It's working as expected, and of course naturally this user has their own H drive. Alright, and if a user wants to change the domain password, same way as you would do it in a normal Windows environment, you would just do Control-Delete, change password, and we'll make it a bit longer. Okay, change the password, and I can go ahead and log in with the new password just to verify that it is working. And one other quick thing, if a user needs local administrative rights, say they're just an ordinary domain user, but they need local administrative rights on this particular computer, you can go ahead and log in with a user. An example would be like myself. Who has rights to elevate a user's privileges on a local computer. And it works the same way as if you were in a Windows environment. Go to administrators, and we can add a user. Let's just say Zentest. That'll give Zentest, this user, this ordinary domain user, with no access to the accounting share, will have access as a local administrator on this computer only. And it works the same way as in a Windows environment. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to proceed now to Windows 8 and give that a test. Make sure that's working nicely. Go ahead and shut this down. And I'll start up the Windows 8 virtualization. I'll move this into position. Isn't VirtualBox nice? It's a great product. And let's go ahead and log in. And we'll choose desktop. And as you can see, it sees our network test.lan, and we will accept it. And let's go ahead and point it to a time server. Excellent. And let's go ahead and join into the domain. No changes here, just as if you were going to join it to a Windows type of domain. No registry changes, just pretty straightforward. There we go. And I'm going to try to run through the exact same thing on Windows 8 that I did on Windows 7 just to verify that everything is working accordingly. I mean, Windows 7 worked great. I don't see no reason why Windows 8 won't work the same. Windows 8 is a very nice product that Microsoft has put out there. And we'll log in with a domain user. And it has to create a desktop for this user since it's the first time this user is logged into this computer. I'll pause the video while it creates the desktop. It's about done now creating the desktop. And we'll choose the desktop, and we can go in and test those file shares out. There's accounting, and there's the accounting folder. This user does have access to that folder. out the network drive, and there is the test folder we had created in Windows 7, so the H drive is mapping out from user to user. Excellent. And now let's go ahead and log in with a user who does not have access to the accounting share. That would have been Zentest, who does not have access. And once again, this will take a minute to create a desktop. This way we can just go through and make sure these functions work. I like to do this in my tutorial so you can see that it does work. Hopefully it'll give a little bit of confidence in the fact that you see that it does work, so when you go ahead and build your own, hopefully you do it like in a VirtualBox first, so you get comfortable with it before you actually go out and spend time making a production server. Get it working the way you want, tweak it different ways, and then that's the nice thing about VirtualBox. It's just so adaptive, and it runs so well. That way you can get it just the way you want it for your production environment. So let's go to this desktop now, and we're going to test that share, which by all rights this user should not have access. Excellent. Being prompted for a password, that is an excellent sign. And it doesn't work, so that's exactly what we were looking for. And I don't believe this user had a folder on there, or maybe they did on their H drive. No, we did not create a folder in this H drive. Alright, let's go ahead and change the password. This user's password is going to get pretty long here. Sure, I typed it correctly. That was pretty quick. Go ahead and test this password. Excellent. And let's see if we can elevate this user to a local administrator. So I will have to sign in as myself real quick here. And once again, it's going to create a desktop for myself. So I'll pause the video while this is taking place. Okay, the desktop is just about finished. And let me go into it. And we can go into Manage, Groups, Administrators, and let's see if we can add Zentest as a local admin. There we go. Zentest can now log in and have administrative rights on this computer, so it's working as expected. So now let's go ahead and start the Linux desktop and join that, the domain. Slide that out of the way and start the Ubuntu desktop. Go ahead and slide it over. There we go. As you can see, I already have a local administrator set up, and there's also guest session. Guest session is a really neat feature. It allows a user to log on just for guest rights only. No access to the domain, just internet access, and it doesn't require a password. So if you have a vendor or a temporary user that you don't want to set up an account for, but they need a computer for like webmail and to get out on the internet, they can utilize this desktop, the Office products, internet. They can create folders. But when they leave and they log off, once they log off, the session starts over and everything is deleted. So it's a pretty good degree of security. That way, if they log off, everything they left in our desktop is deleted. So it's a kind of cool feature. But however, You may get users that are not too thrilled about the fact that they have a guest sign-on on their workstation, so you might want to remove that. Of course, that's all open for interpretation, your business needs, but I'll show you how to remove it if you want to. So let's go ahead and log in. Let's go into the HUD, heads-up display, and let's set up a super user. Apply your local administrative password, and then set up your root password or your super user password. Excellent. Let's elevate our status, SU. Apply the password you just created. And we're going to change directory to the root, and we're going to use the nano. This is the command line text editor. And we're going to navigate to the etc light dm light dm.conf, and we're going to add a few lines here. We're going to add a allow guest equals false. That will remove that guest option. We also need to add an actual login screen. If you notice, it was just guest and the local administrator account. There's no place to put a domain sign-on, like a login screen, like a traditional login screen. So we need to add that so domain users can take advantage of this desktop and be able to use it as a production machine. So in order to achieve that, we need to add greeter show manual login equals true, and that'll give us what we need for a domain user to log on. So hold down the control key and press O on the keyboard and write the changes, and then once again press down control and the letter X to exit out. Press the up arrow key, and we're going to make one more quick change. We're going to go into the Samba folder, smb.conf, and we're going to make a quick change here to work group. Change it to your domain name. We'll just put it in as test, that's fine. And once again, Control O, enter, and then Control X. Let's install an application here. apt-get install Synaptic. This should only take about a minute to download. Excellent. Now we can go into the HUD and search for Synaptic. Type in SYN. There we go. And apply your local administrative password to bring up the Synaptic Manager. And we're going to look for a very popular application called LikewiseOpen. LikewiseOpen joins Ubuntu to a Windows domain or to a Zentyal domain. It takes advantage of the Kerberos feature. The nice thing about Kerberos and using Samba 4, like a Windows domain, when you join it, you don't have to rely completely on LDAP for authentication. By that I mean, if you have a local, if a user has a laptop, for instance, and they have a domain account, they can bring the laptop home with them and log in, and they don't have to be attached to the network to take advantage of logging in using their domain account. Of course, they won't be connected to the domain, so they won't have any of those features, but at least they can log on to the laptop. And in the previous version, you had to rely on LDAP to authenticate the user, so you pretty much had to be logged in to the, or connected to the network in order to utilize a domain account. With Kerberos and Samba 4, you can use what is called cache credentials to log in. It's a way users can take their laptops home with them or workstations that are connected to the network and still log in with their domain account as long as the credentials are cached. So we're going to go ahead and install that. We can just type in Likewise, it'll come up. Then we're going to choose the GUI. This will install every component that we need. Everything I'm doing here is open for interpretation. I'm sure there's lots of ways of doing things. Not to say anybody's right or wrong. It's just whatever you're most comfortable with and fits your business plan. Now, with Likewise being open installed, the rest is very, very simple. We'll go back into the HUD and type in like, bring it up. You're going to have to put in your local administrative password, of course, and the domain test.lan. And that's pretty much it. Type in a user who has rights to join. And go ahead and join it. That's it, done. Let's go ahead and reboot and we'll test everything out. I'll pause the video while it's rebooting. Excellent. And now we have the login option and guest has been removed. So let's go ahead and log in. And I want to choose the 2D, less resource demand since I'm using a virtualization. Let's log in with Zen user. And there we go. The domain account worked just fine. And let's go ahead and browse the network. We're going to go to Go, Location, and we're going to change this to SMB : server 01. And there's the accounting folder, and that worked great. We can put a test Ubuntu. Now, say for instance, you want to map this out as like a particular drive. It's very simple in Windows. Here in Linux, it's a little bit different. What we can do is go into Bookmarks and add a bookmark. Then go into Edit Bookmarks and browse down to where that bookmark was, and you can change it to, like, say, the Z drive. That way they have a mapped out drive. And say they want their personal drive like you do in Windows, like their H drive. We can go to Go, Location, and change this to the user's name. In this case it would be Zen user. And there's that test folder again that we created under the Windows. And they can just add bookmark, edit bookmark, and call this, say, their H drive. Well, they got the best of both worlds. They have their mapped out drives in Windows and in Linux, and they have single sign-on. And there they both are. Now, say for instance you want this user to be a local admin only on this computer. So right now this user just has like domain rights. It doesn't have this user does not have local administrative rights to install. So we're going to have to add that. So let's go into the HUD. This would probably be as user needed basis. And terminal. Elevator status SU. And as you can see, the home folder really changes a little bit here. It's much longer. So if you noticed here, where the home folders would normally reside, right here, like the user, now you have a LikewiseOpen. All domain users will reside in here. It's kind of neat, gives a degree of separation between the local and the domain users. So if they just open a normal terminal, they'll just see this. They really won't notice a difference. Alright, so we need to run a few commands here. Let's just clear this out. And I'm going to change directory to the... There we go. We need to type a couple commands in. The first one is going to be add group --system system admin. And the next one's going to be add user, and that would be, in this case, the user's name is Zen user admin. And now this user has local administrative rights. and we can go ahead and delete the local account, the local D-user account. You can see it still says standard, but it just hasn't been updated yet. But you can see here it's already moved over into the administrative area. And then D-user, we can just delete, and that should change here to an administrator. Now this user has administrative rights. Now let's log in with a user who should not have access to that accounting share. I can test that out real quick. That would be Zentyal, who now has a very, very long password. Let's go ahead and browse to that network share. And there's accounting, and of course it doesn't work. So it is working as expected. This user does not have access to this share in Windows or in Linux. Now, say you want to change your password. The quickest, easiest way to change your domain password is just to go into the terminal and just type in PASSWD. It's that simple. And then current password. And then new password. And the password has been changed. Very simple. We can go into a network resource like, let's just say, the webmail. Actually, let's go into User Corner. That is another great resource for users to change their password. Let's make sure, after changing it through command liner, then make sure that the password is taken by a network resource. Excellent. Let's go ahead and log out of this. Looks like the network resource is working just fine as expected. And let's log off the client and log in with the new password, the new domain password we just set up. Excellent. So everything is working in unison. And as you can see, everything worked. And as you can see, everything worked as expected. Logged in with the new password. We were able to join multiple platforms to the Zentyal domain. Everything worked flawlessly. We were able to access shares that only specific users had access to, and that worked. And the users that did not have access to those shares, it did not work. So that was good. As far as joining the domain, Zentyal has made this very simple, very user-friendly. Did a great job once again. So let's go ahead and move this out of the way. Something else I wanted to show you here, as you can see on the DHCP leases, you can see how the host names do register. That is working great. It shows the MAC address, the IPs that were assigned. Well, that pretty much concludes my tutorial on joining clients to the Zentyal domain. All three worked flawlessly, as expected once again. And like I said earlier, everything I'm doing in my tutorials is just to give you the basics, the basic understanding of Zentyal, and hopefully you can take what I've shown you in the tutorials and build on it and set up your own functioning environment. And thank you for all the nice comments I have received on the Jonas.net. I hope you watch my next tutorial, and the next one will be on thin clients.